Hello, America and the world. Welcome to another episode of Life After Lockup. This is a program that is designed for the community, for society to see another side of the criminal justice system. We try to let you know that we are human and that maybe we go through some things in life that ends us up in prison, but we're trying to show you a different side of us, either while we're in prison or the life that we live after we get out. I want to also remind you of some things that we're doing here in the community of Paducah, Kentucky. We have a lifesaver class every Tuesday morning at 11:30 to 12:30. If you have any life controlling issues at all, feel free to come out. It's an 8-week course. You get a certificate of completion after the 8 weeks, and we believe that God will help you to overcome whatever your issues are. We want to remind all the ex-offenders and families of ex-offenders, those that might have people that are incarcerated. We have a ex-offender support group every first Monday of the month at the W.C. Young Community Center here in Paducah, Kentucky. It's at 5:30 to 6:30 every first Monday for all ex-offenders. You come out and we try to support you, to help you to get on your feet and things of that nature. Also, we have things for men, things for women, things for marriage, things for teenagers called Teen Ease, a new venture that we've just begun almost a year now. Teenagers from 13 to 19, we meet at the community kitchen on Jefferson Street, right across from Allen Autos. All teenagers come out, food, fun, and fellowship. We try to give you some instructions about how you need to govern your life. We are so excited today. Today is a different kind of program than we've ever had before. I personally have issues with profiling. Anytime police profile Black Americans and things of that nature, I have issues with that from a personal standpoint. Never really talked about it here on the program. I also have issues with the criminal justice system. I feel like sometimes we don't get a fair shake. I got problems with the fact that we are 13% of the American population, but over 50% of those that are incarcerated. How is that for Black Americans? Is there general racism that's going on in our criminal justice system? And if it's so, then what can be done about it? And how far does it go? Does it go from the police department to the courthouse and also in prison? Well, we have a young man here with us today that's going to talk about some things that happened to him during his course in a prison here in Kentucky. I want to welcome to the show Brother David Doyle. How you doing, man?
All right, sir. How are you?
Doing marvelous. Listen, this is a program that's normally deals with people that after they come out of prison. Okay, you've been out now. You just did 8.5 years. You got out in August. So this coming August will be 1 year that you've been out. Now we've talked and. Some of the things that you went through, I kind of want to share with our viewers today. But before we get into that, I kind of want you to kind of give a little bit about your background as much as you want to, like how you grew up here in Paducah, and maybe some of the things that you went through as a child, and what you think might have influenced you even to go to prison.
Okay. Growing up as a child, have 7 brothers and 1 sister. Mm-hmm. I was the youngest, and all of my older brothers used to, kind of pick on me, and that was that caused some type of change reaction in my life, mm-hmm. and I began to rebel, mm-hmm. trying to get away from the beatings that I was taking, okay. And so I turned to the streets. To my friends, and which caused jail time.
Okay.
And so I began to get in trouble, go to jail all the time, and jail was just like the next thing to do. Mm. And here, since I've been out now, I was locked up for assault. Mm. I did 8.5 years. Far as how we was treated in there and how the police act, prison guards, it was really cruel. Okay. And not a lot of people see from the inside.
Right.
So many people vote and think they're voting for someone that they think is doing a great job, but really is hurting other people, humans. Inmates are human beings as well.
Right.
Yes, we have done something against society, but we still are human beings. We still need to be treated fair.
Right. And before you move on, I like what you just said about, we might do something against society, but in all actuality, giving us prison time is our punishment. That is, they are punishing us by locking us up. So to me, and I don't know how you feel about this, just the lockup alone is horrific enough.
Right,
just being locked up. And so what you're saying is that even after being locked up, getting your freedom taken away from you, getting time, whether it's just or unjust, whether it's fair or unfair, getting the time is one thing. But yet now, what you're saying is that the treatment in there is also something added on top of the time.
Right, you are correct. And what they do is they create situations in order to, they would make sure, far as the racism part go, they would make sure they would do something, an officer would do something for another inmate that he ain't supposed to do.
Okay.
And it happened to be a Caucasian inmate, but he want the black inmate, the African-American inmate, to see that.
Okay.
So they create the situation as racism.
Okay.
And then, which incites riots.
Right.
Riots erupt. I was just at a prison, and I left before it happened, but a riot had just occurred in one of the Kentucky state prisons.
Wow. And you feel like that the riot was racially based?
I do, because if one person get into an argument or a fight, you don't take it out on the whole yard. That's 1,200 other inmates that you're telling, because these few guys acted up, well, we're going to punish the rest of you.
So they're going to lock down the whole unit. Nobody gets phone calls, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Everything is, shut down. The phone calls are basically inside the wings.
Okay.
In certain places. Now, at different places, the phone calls are outside the room, the units. Right. And so, yes, that's possible too, where they don't get phone calls or anything of that nature as well.
Okay, now, because I want to make this really clear, because you've done your time, you're off parole now, you've basically flattened out. So it's not like you're trying to get any type of retribution. You're not trying to, because you're mad at the system, want to get them back or whatever. You basically are through with your time. So you're basically just stating some things that some people just don't know. And I'm gonna just kind of throw my dog in that fight too, because spending 3.5 years or 3 years and a couple of months in Tennessee prison, we knew there were some officers there that were racist. We knew they were, and there was nothing that we could do about it, because the majority of the officers there were Caucasian officers. They only had just a few black ones that were there. Now, and we knew, we could just tell how they treated us versus how they treated the Caucasian inmates there, that they were racist. But here's the bad part about it, was that when they fill out the application, they can't, I guess there's not a part on the application that says, are you a member of the Aryan Nation? Are you a member of this and that? Are you a member of this, or are you racist? I don't guess they have that on the application. So they just fill it out and allow them to work in an environment that's already heated.
Right.
The environment is already heated, then you come in there basically dehumanizing me even further than I already am. And the thing about it, what can you do about it? Now right. I want to ask you from a personal standpoint, like, did you ever get mistreated, you personally ever get mistreated from officers that you felt were treating you that way because you were black?
Yes, and right before I was being released, I had filed a grievance on an officer.
Okay, so what's a grievance?
A grievance is like they're someone that they have to answer to.
Right.
It's like a penalty that they have to go through, like a write-up.
Right. So inmates can write up the officers for doing something against them.
Right.
Okay.
That's, ain't human, what you ain't supposed to do to a human.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
And so I had wrote him up, and it's kind of like to keep him from sending his other fellow officers to you because you wrote him up. So he cannot retaliate because of the write-up.
Right,
and
right.
Which goes to Frankfurt, which is the capital.
Right.
And then, that officer has some type of so many strikes that he get against him before he's fired.
Okay.
When it becomes towards the racism or anything that you treat an inmate as anything other than a human being.
Okay. Okay.
And actually, I filed a grievance. Something was said. I asked a inmate for a light, and it was another officer there, and he made the comment of dealing with, well, I give this light to the white man first versus the black man. And me and the inmate looked at each other like, hold on, man, you can't do that. So I spoke with the inmate, which he was a Caucasian, and we both felt like the officer was wrong.
Right.
And so me and the inmate, we put him on paper.
Wrote him up. Filed a grievance
We
against him.
filed a grievance against him, and of course they kind of blew it off because I was getting out. Since I was serving out, they kind of blew it off like, well, we'll just stretch it all the way out until he leaves,
Right.
and then he won't pick it up when he get out. And which I still would love to pick it up when I get out, but
The bad part about getting out, because you say some things kind of strike a nerve here. A lot of times we go through, and you went through 8.5 years, and I did 3 years in a couple of months, but you have so many things that happen in there to you, against you, and against other people that you really want to fight when you get out. I'm going to do something about that when I get out, because only so much you can do while you're in there.
Right.
But then when you get out, you got to live. You got to work on trying to survive, keeping food in your mouth and keeping a roof over your head. So you don't really think about going back in, trying to do something, bring about some justice or some type of equality, back in there, because we kind of forget about. I can say forget about. We don't really forget about it, but I guess we get kind of caught in the crossfire. What do you do about things like that we know is happening in there? Because just because we leave don't mean that it's not happening. We saw some things there. Now, you had mentioned once about, I don't know if this was just treatment, whether it was racial or not, but you had to go to the hole or something at one time, and they thought you was playing when you were sick. Can you give me that story?
I went to medical for a stomach problem, and I went and got some medication to have my bowels to be moved, you know what I mean? And they gave me some wrong medication to where I was allergic to it. And I broke out, and I was all swollen, and then they gave me Benadryl to counteract the medicine that they had given me. And it kind of messed me up, and I kept telling them something is wrong with me. And so every time that I would go to medical, they would just send me away. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Ain't nothing wrong with you. And so the last time that I was in the chow hall, which is the eating quarters, I was there, and I was telling the officer that I didn't feel good, and he was gonna send me to medical. Well, they called the nurses down to the eating quarters, the chow hall, and they began to look at me and said, well, don't worry about it, we're gonna lock him up. I said, lock me up? I said, lock me up? You can't lock me up? For what? What did I do? And they told me that we believe that you're faking the pain. I told the woman, I said, look, if I was faking the pain, I wouldn't need you.
Right.
And it was like, well, we believe you're faking the pain. And they locked me in a dry cell. And a dry cell is a cell with a camera in it, where they lock you in there, take all your clothes.
What?
And then, it's mainly for a suicidal cell. And they locked me in a dry cell where I couldn't really have anything. And while I was there, a couple of the officers that worked the cab part of the whole area was making little noises like, ooh, trying to
Intimidate you some kind of way?
intimidate my mind to
Right.
make me think that I'm crazy or something of that nature.
Wow. Wow.
And I went through that in prison, so I thought that was really cruel. And
Man, and now I'm kind of got away with it right here because you got 8.5 years. Now I'm thinking, well, you actually got 10 years. You did 8.5. From childhood, here you are being basically, beaten, being ill-treated by family or whatever, having this low self-esteem thing, and then you go to prison and you get ill-treated at once is enough. What would that one particular thing right there is enough to cause all kinds of issues. What kept you? Because you've told me, some other things. I think an officer kicked your bunk or something one time, and all these kind of things that happened to you that you felt like were unfair. How did you maintain any kind of discipline without going off on somebody, without doing something strange? Did you start seeking God while you were in there, or what kept you sane?
actually, yes, I was seeking God while I was in there, and I didn't really want to lose no good time. And this good time is time you've already spent. They take that from you, make you serve that time over.
Okay.
If you're getting in trouble, if you're getting a whole bunch of write-ups, if you can't beat the write-ups or whatever. And so, yes, I was seeking God, definitely.
So some of the stuff you just endured. I mean, how did that go with what you had already gone through as a child? Did that add more low self-esteem on you, or more insecurities, more anger, or what? Because you've been out for almost a year. You've been doing great. It's almost like it didn't affect you at all. But evidently, it had to do something. Do you feel like it? How do you feel? Let me see, how can I ask this question? What do you feel was the thing that kept you moving without getting in trouble, without, like, I know you said that you wanted the time. Was that the basic key right there?
Well, it was part of it, but it wasn't all of it. And it was like I was working on myself. Okay. I couldn't, there really wasn't no programs in there that helped us face things in life that we needed to get over. Mm-hmm. And so I began to pray and ask God and asked him to help me deal with the things that are hidden in my heart.
Okay.
And so I'm definitely going to say Jesus, help me out completely in those areas. Right. And to stay focused on what I was doing, I know the mindset of the other inmate and what I mean by that is that person may always be on the edge. Mm-hmm. And so with me being around all these different personalities and characters of people, I had to find a way to say, hey, I'm not going to be involved with everything that these guys are going through. I'm just going to stay my distance, speak, and keep moving. Wow.
And because I know people have these Hollywood images of prison and, all these stabbings and the things of that nature. I saw my share of those things, but like I said, I'm thinking 3 years, a couple of months versus 8.5. How much of that did you see, and how did it affect you?
I've seen some amazing things. Actually, just seeing it happen. No, I've only seen an inmate knock a female officer out. Wow. I've seen now some things has been like, say, even though you don't see it, but you know that it just took place. Right. A guy was playing dominoes and a guy just walked up and slapped him with a can of chili across his head. I've seen where a guy was cracked in the head with a horseshoe and, 70, 80 staples in his head. they would lock the yard down, then they would open it right back up, and like nothing has never happened. And, you know, that used to bother me, you know, like, man, I wonder if that guy died or whatever, and do I need to pray for this guy or whatever. But, you know, you just keep it moving. You know, you ain't seen nothing.
Right. How do you know, because you came up on the streets in a sense. I'm sure when you were on the streets, you know, some things you just didn't take off of people or whatever. What kept you from really getting that anger kind of overriding you, I guess, and not getting into fights in prison? I guess just by wanting to get out, I guess, you know, wanting to make sure that you don't get no time.
Right. I wanted to get back home to my family. I realized that a crime was committed. I went and done my time for the crime, or I was doing my time for the crime. I just didn't want to hurt anybody no more, right. You know, with the anger that I had, you know, far as what charge I had. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to hurt anybody no more. And, you know, I had to fight real hard mentally and spiritually to keep from going that route.
Right,
you know?
right. And you know, that makes a whole lot of sense because, okay, you went in for an assault charge, so you definitely did not want to be in there assaulting people. Right. You know, because right. you wanted to make sure that you were better and that they saw you a different way. And I guess even when I look at my charge, I went in for armed robbery. Okay, that's what they considered a violent offense. Right. So I wanted to stay away, as far away from violence as I possibly could, so that not only I didn't want to be a part of it, I didn't want them to still think that that's what the way that I was. So that's a lot of good thinking right there. But what a lot of times people go in, they continue their violence, they continue their how they were out on the street and everything. But you were working on changing. Right. See, that right there alone is a powerful thing to tell inmates that are in prison. Okay, you're there, but what are you going to do while you're there? You got to work on changing. Right. And that's what you were doing, so that you could get out, like you say, get back with your family and everything. And even though all the things that you maybe went through with childhood, and even some of the things that you went through in prison, I know some of the things that you probably don't even really feel comfortable telling people or whatever. Some of it you probably forgot about because it was 8.5 years. But on top of all of that, here you are. You've been out almost a year in August.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
How have you made it?
I decided that I don't want to even run a stop sign. I don't even want no ticket. I decided that there's laws, mm-hmm. and they're put in place for a purpose.
Right.
And I've did enough in my childhood on up to my adulthood. This time here was, you know, I was 29 when I went in, come out at 30, 38 years old, 37. Mm. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I ain't got another day left in me. I can't keep taking my life and just turning it over to the state without, you know what I mean, just like no care in the world.
Right. Right.
You know, I don't have that in me anymore. Freedom is 100% good.
Man.
I love freedom.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Ain't nothing like it, is it?
Ain't nothing like freedom, you know, to go to your refrigerator.
Right.
You know, cook, to even have a stove, cook you something to eat. If you wanted to go for a walk at a certain time of the day, you can without being locked down.
Right.
And, the prison guards telling you when you can take a shower, when you can't take a shower.
Right.
You know, all of that right there, you know, helped me to make my mind up to where I don't want to be in here.
Good, very good.
I don't want to be come back to this, you know. So right. I'm going to get a job. I had a job working in there as a janitor or whatever the job was in order to provide. I only brought in $16.80 every 45 days, which that was every state pay. But I made do with what I had.
Right.
And so if I can make it in prison with what little I had, being free and having all of this, man, anybody can make it if they want to.
That is good, because you have to have your mind made up. I really like what you said. I don't have another day in me to give to the state, and if a person is thinking like that, that they shouldn't end up going back, because just as well I do, a lot of times people get out and they go right back. But your mind, and I like what you were saying, you start working on yourself while you were in there. Start working on yourself. So now that you're out, you just continue to do the right thing and stay focused on where you want to go and where you don't want to go.
Right.
Because you definitely don't want to go back in there. And I'm really grateful that you came and shared a portion of your story with us, because I definitely want people to understand there's not a cakewalk. Prison it's not a cakewalk. It's not something that you can just go through there and all your buddies are there and we're gonna have a grand old good time. It's some horrific things that go on. People have authority and control over you. And a lot of times they treat you however they want to, and who's to stop them and who's to fix it the next time. If God don't help us to make it through something like that, then we'll be taken advantage of by those that are in there. Whether it's a racist officer or just a non-caring person that hates his job. All those things can happen, and we become the victim. After we have victimized, we now become the victim, and a lot of times it's hard to get past that type of treatment. But you've made it through it, man, and 8.5 years, that's a lot of time.
It is. That was a whole bunch of time, and when I think back, I know it had to be God to help me.
Had to be God.
Had to be God. Had to be God.
And that's the thing right there.
And it had to be God, and I know, because the things that I wanted to do in life.
Right.
I wanted to help so many people. I was helping people while I was in there, helping them to overcome, letting them know that, this ain't what's happening,
Right. Man, you've done great. Listen, I really appreciate your time, man. Really appreciate your story. Want you to get my book, Under the Shadow. I've been holding it in my hand for all this time. Get this book. Anybody that's in prison, that's going through prison, that's thinking about going to prison, somebody, Under the Shadow, get this book, 270-575-3823. That's the church number. Call me. I can get you order this book. If you say you saw it on Life After Lockup, I'll give it to you for $10. How about that? Thank you so much for watching Life After Lockup. Thank our guests for being with us, and hope you learned something. Hope something was said to help you, and you have a marvelous day.